this is a session with Mindpark in Lund here, and in these times there's more focus on the digital than on the physical meetings. So we're supposed to have an event today with me talking actually about 7 unexpected rules for an awesome life, and so we're doing it digital instead of doing it physical in that sense today. So welcome to this event and this lecture, or I don't know what to call it actually, but we'll see. And this is actually me talking about different things which I've experienced during life and how it has affected me and how I realize it affects others. So there's 7 different rules or guidelines or something like that, depends on how you want to define it. And I was just saying, let's get started. Who am I? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm involved in a couple of different companies, and I'm involved in companies in all kinds of sectors. So that, like within the food sector, within the co-working sector, within the tech sector. So that makes me kind of see a lot of different areas of society in interesting ways. I'm also politically active, so I've been involved in politics for a while now. I've been a social entrepreneur. I'm the chairman of a foundation. So I'm kind of doing a lot of different things, and that exposes me to a lot of different people, different segments, and I think that makes it very interesting to see what's similar in all of these different areas and what's different in all of these different areas. And I think some of those things is what I kind of try to condense here and make shareable and concrete enough. Okay, so 7 rules for a more interesting life. And the first rule I always say is dare to ask. And this is very important, I would say. Like, we usually make a mistake of not knowing what to ask for, or that we even could ask. So all of us have problems. Like, we all have a lot of different problems all the time. Big problems, small problems. And we realize that others also have problems, but we don't always realize that, we can actually ask others about it. And the reason why we don't realize it automatically is because it's a little bit like if you ask for something, you also show that you have a problem. So in that sense, it can be embarrassing to ask for something. You expose yourself and say like, okay, I don't really know how this works, but I need help. So that's one of the reasons why we're not that good at it automatically. Like, we don't like to be embarrassed. We like to show that we're confident. We like to show that we are under control of the situation. But asking automatically means we show that we don't have control of the situation. However, the biggest problem with asking is that we just don't think about that we could ask. So because we don't do it automatically, we only do it in certain circumstances. But there's I would say actually no real circumstance where you can't ask your surrounding. Doesn't matter what's about. You can always ask your surrounding, or you can ask the internet. You can ask Google in that sense. So like, ask as much as possible. And as with everything else, the more you do it, the better you become. So this is like a general advice of just like dare to ask. Like, don't be afraid of showing that you don't have all the knowledge, all the information. Don't be afraid of being embarrassed. And this will never change. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you learn certain things, there'll still be things you don't know, and they will still feel embarrassing. And it's actually kind of a little bit contradictory. Is that the more you know, the less likely you are to actually ask, because you might have a feeling of, okay, I should actually know. Like, when you're a child, you're not afraid of asking because the general feeling is that I don't know. There's so much to learn out there, and therefore I'm not afraid of asking. And then the more you learn, the more you get the feeling of I should know this. So then it becomes embarrassing. But that's actually just in your mind. So ignore that feeling, and the more you know, the more you actually also understand that you need to ask. Otherwise, how will you learn more? How will you know what's right, what's wrong? So Dare to ask. Second rule is that nobody knows what they are doing. And this is something which is for a couple of people very obvious, like especially entrepreneurs, they realize this rather quickly. But also like if you're responsible for something, or if you're a manager or something like that, you realize after a while people don't actually know what they're doing, and that's how it is. Like, and that's not. It might seem strange, but that's actually not strange at all, because how should they know? Like what? Like if you're the Prime Minister of Sweden, when you become the Prime Minister of Sweden, have you been the Prime Minister before? No, most of the time. Sometimes if you get re-elected, yes, but when you become the Prime Minister first time, you haven't been it before. How do you know what to do? Yeah, like how do you know? You don't. So like this is how it is everywhere. So everybody is just kind of winging it. Everybody's just trying to do the best of their situation. They are constantly in situations where they haven't been before, and when you are in a situation you haven't been before, you don't really know what you're doing. You're guessing. You're making the best out of it. And this is important together with the first lesson of asking, because whenever you are in a situation where you don't really know what to do, you need to ask people. Maybe those who's been in your position before, or those who are around you, and like, okay, what am I expected to do here? Or you need to Google, or you need to ask on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. So like, it's important to understand that it's okay not to know what you're doing, because that's how it happens. That's how people grow. That's how like if you get more responsibility, that's how it will be. Like if whenever you do something, you come to a new position, or you're doing something new, you don't really know what you're doing. And some people will push this a lot. Some people are very good at pushing themselves into positions where they don't really know what they're doing and become good at handling it. It requires practice as everything else. And some people don't really like this at all. They're kind of like, I want to have everything under control. I want to have everything secure in that sense. But for me, I think it's not really a difference between people. It's more a difference between experience. Like nobody likes not to be in control. Nobody. But the more you are in an environment where you don't have control, the more you get used to it, and the more your body learns, wait, it's actually not that bad. I can handle this. Okay, I don't have control, but I didn't have control last year either, or the year before, or the year before that, and I'm still here. And then your body kind of learns, okay, not having control is actually something which is manageable. So, as with everything else, the more you do it, the better you become. But it's important to realize nobody knows what they're doing. It's a good thing to have in mind when you do things. The third one is be honest. And be honest is it's a simple rule to tell people. It's a very hard rule to oblige to. Why that? Well, because honesty is actually it's actually in two ways. So honesty is in one way about being honest to others. Like, okay, when you ask me something, I'm honest. I don't lie about it. I don't withhold information. I'm honest. This is the situation. Okay, that can be hard enough by itself. Like it can be hard to be honest to other people, because it's easy for us to build a facade of it's going very well, or there's nothing to worry about. Everything is fine. So just being honest with how you actually are feeling or how you actually are doing is kind of hard, because it requires vulnerability from your side. But being vulnerable is super good if you can be as vulnerable as possible, I would say, because it helps you a lot. But the real problem with being honest is that you need to be honest to yourself. And this is a lot harder than people will imagine. And I mean, I guess everybody of you have been in these situations that you say things because you're expected to say them, but you don't really feel them, or you don't really believe them. And this is how we as humans work. Like, we're social people, so our environment's expectations of us is as important as our own expectations of ourselves, or how we feel. So we have this habit of actually doing things or saying things which we are expected to say, or which we are expected to feel, which aren't really true all the time. Most of the time I say they're true, but sometimes they are not true. And this is is an important part. Here you need to be honest. Whenever you feel like something is not really right here, something feels wrong. Something, I don't understand what everybody else is seeing here, or I don't like, whenever you feel things like this, dig into yourself. Why? What is it that feels wrong? What details are it? Because it's very seldom a broad thing, it's very often a small detail. And identifying these details as much as possible will help you to be more honest, because then you can say that, like, it's not that I don't like you, it's that I don't like the way you make me feel when you say this and this. So it's not you I don't like, it's I don't like when you talk in a certain way, because otherwise I like you. It's all these kind of things. So like, try to figure out the details, because if you know the details, it's also a lot easier to handle for yourself. You can identify, oh wait, here are details I don't like, okay, I can avoid them. Or here are details I really like, good, I can do more here. But you need to be honest to yourself to do that. So you need to kind of understand, wait, okay, there's some kind of, I'm not feeling what I think I should feel, or I'm not, I don't have fun, but I should have fun now, or something like that. Whenever that is, dig into yourself and be honest, and really try to evaluate why is this like this, and it never stops. This is a lifelong thing to do. I think you can never learn to know yourself completely 100%, but it's super important, and it's also important to face this honesty. So what I mean with that is that you need to get to know yourself better. You need to get to know what's important, what's not important, but you also need to be able to communicate that to your outside. You need to be able to say to people, yeah, I assumed I would feel like this in this situation, but it turns out this annoyed me, or this didn't work for me, so I can't do as I thought I would be able to do. Like, this is really important as well. Like, people change, or people realize more, situations change, and you need to be able to be open about that, and confess, and let other people into your life and say, like, yeah, I was wrong. Like, I thought I knew myself, I didn't. I was wrong. Very important to be able to do that. So honesty, super important. Okay, the three up to now are fairly easy in that sense as well, even if they're hard to do. The fourth one is a mindset of that the world is unfair, and this is just a mind trick, but I would say it's a very important mind trick. And why do I say trick? Well, because a lot of the things about how we live our life is in our head. Like, we live our lives here. We don't live our lives here. We think we live it here, but it's here where we're living it. So working with your own mind is the crucial thing to do in order to be happy. Like, you cannot, it's very few things in your surrounding you can change, especially in our society where everything is good, no matter what you're doing, more or less. So it's only here where you can change things for real, and that's where the important changes. And this is one of the important changes. And you have to realize that the world is unfair. And why is this important? Well, okay, well, we can start like this. What do I mean with that the world is unfair? Well, the world is unfair because we are experiencing the world through our own eyes, through our own self. And that means that we always overvalue certain things and we undervalue certain things. And especially we overvalue things which are done by us. Like, when we do something, we overvalue it. When others do something, we often undervalue it. So I can give an example. Say that I'm helping a friend of mine. A friend of mine will move apartments, and I'm helping them move. Okay. How much like, how much am I helping that person? Am I helping that person a little or a lot? Depends on details. What kind of details? Okay, say that I really like help. I really like my friend. I really like helping out. I see helping somebody move, like, oh, it's a nice way to get some extra exercise, and I don't have anything to do this weekend anyway. So for me, it might be very little help. It's almost like fun. Like, okay, very little help from my perspective, for example. But it could also be the other way around. It could be that I really don't like to help. This friend is a nice friend, but it's not my best friend. And I actually wanted to go to this concert or to this trip this weekend. So then I helped this friend a lot. I still did the same things. I carried the same packages and bags and everything, but I helped in two different ways from my own perspective. And the same is from my friend's perspective. If she has a lot of other friends who are also helping out, then me helping out or not is a small favor I'm doing. It's not a big favor. It's kind of like, yeah, it's nice if you also want to help out, but if you don't, that's fine. Like, it's a small favor. Or she doesn't have many friends. She might only have me. And then me helping her move is a big favor. Like, if I wouldn't do it, she would maybe not be able to move at all, or she would be a real hassle to do it. So, and that's in her head. But still the same thing we're doing. We're still moving the same boxes and the same bags and everything. It's the same physical things, but in the heads it's two different things. And here's the problem, that I know my side. I know if I am helping her a lot or a little, but I don't know her side. I might get to know it because she might be an open person and telling me, but it's definitely like we are really bad at actually telling people our inner feelings. So there's also a 50% she's not telling me everything, or she's just telling me certain things or whatever. So I don't really know her side, but I know my side. And this means that as social beings, we have this kind of social credit. Like we like, okay, if I've helped you move, then you owe me something. What, we don't really know, but we have that kind of this built-in system in our head where it's kind of like we kind of know that you owe me something, and you have a feeling that you have a feeling about it, and I have a feeling about it. But the problem is that if that feeling is unfair, if I feel I helped you a lot, I would expect quite a lot back. But if you only feel I helped you a little because you had all your other friends anyway, so it didn't really matter that much, then you don't feel you owe me as much back. And this is kind of the essence of that the world is unfair. Like, you only know your side, you don't know the other side. And that means that you often overvalue your contribution. You often think that, but I helped this much, I did all of these things. But if the other side doesn't see it, doesn't see all of what you did, it doesn't matter. Like then, it does not matter that you did a lot of things. The only thing that matters is what others see, or what others experience. So how do we work around this? You work around this by assuming that the world is unfair. What does that mean? That means that whatever you will do, nobody will really appreciate it all the way. Doesn't matter. Whatever you will do, people will never really appreciate it. And that's okay. That's fine. You should do it anyway. Life isn't about fairness, because a life about fairness will automatically not be equal, because you will always perceive your own thing as more important, and therefore never really feel all the things you get back. So working toward having a fair society in that sense is actually not really solving this. It actually needs to be unfair, but it needs to be unfair on a positive balance. So people need to give more than they're expecting back. So the golden rule, for example, you should treat others as you expect them to treat you. I would say it's actually bad. It's a bad rule. It should be, you should treat others better than you are expecting them to treat you. That's a good rule, because then you create love in society. Then you create happiness in society. So treat others better than you are expecting to be treated back. That's how you get a happy life. Very important. Super simple. It's a mind hack, but it's super important. So expect the world to never see everything that you're giving, but you still need to, of course, give. Like why does it matter? Why do they need to see everything? Doesn't matter. You should do it anyway. You should do it because you feel this is good for somebody else. That's why you do it. Not because you should get something back. Okay? Fifth rule. Also mind hacks and mind tricks. Respect the curse of knowledge. This is from, it's not stolen, but the curse of knowledge is from a book from Daniel Kahneman, who wrote Thinking Fast and Slow, which is a very, very good book if you want to understand the mind better. Super thick, but very interesting. And one of the things he goes, like, I think probably just a couple of pages of the book, but it's still super important, is that he mentions the curse of knowledge. And the curse of knowledge it's truly a curse. Like, it's a curse that all humans have. And the problem with the curse of knowledge is that we don't really know about it even. So it complicates a lot of things for us, and we don't really know about it, which is super bad. So, but especially in our society, you need to be aware of this. It's super important. Okay, so what is the curse of knowledge? The curse of knowledge is that once you've gained knowledge, you don't know how it is not to have that knowledge. Okay, sounds strange and easy maybe, but what does that mean? That means that in simplistic of terms, if you have learned that 2 + 2 = 4, your brain cannot understand how it is not knowing it. So if a child comes up to you and doesn't understand how 2 + 2 = 4, your brain, you cannot comprehend it. Like, why don't you just understand it? It's super obvious that it's 2 and 2 that equals 4. And that's how it works. So our brain cannot unlearn in that sense. We cannot just switch off knowledge and say, okay, now I don't have this knowledge anymore, and now I am behaving like this instead. And this is important because we're learning things all the time, especially in our society, which changes so much and rapidly. All the time we're learning things, and we don't really understand that we have learned things. So it's super hard to talk to people who don't have your knowledge base. And we see this more and more, especially now that society is diverging with different groups and different interests and all those kind of things. Like, if you talk to somebody who's watched the same YouTube videos as you, who's watched the same Netflix series as you, who've read the same blog post as you, super easy conversation because you have the same knowledge, like you understand each other. But if you're talking to somebody who's read totally different things, who's seen totally different things, it might be really hard because you don't really understand what you know that they don't know. So you don't see why are they not understanding this? This is super obvious. Why is this not obvious to them? And that's because they haven't learned it yet. And the problem here is that learning something, it is a lot of small steps. You need to learn one fact, and then you need to learn another fact, and then you need to learn another fact, and then another fact. And when we look at it in hindsight, because it's so obvious for us, we don't see these small steps anymore. We just assume, I knew this, and then now I know this, so this is a step for me. But that's a too big step. That step is too large. So it's all these small steps you need to remember. Okay, so the best thing to work against the curse of knowledge is to actually remember, how did I actually learn these kind of things? Like, how did I become aware of this? And when you think about that, you will quite often realize it was quite a long journey. It might have taken you half a year or a year to change your mind from this perspective to this perspective. It was not something you did just, I realized this and then I changed it. Quite often it was like, I believed this, then I changed me a little bit, and then I changed me a little bit, and then I was contradicted here, and then I changed here, and then I read this, and then here, and now I'm here. And you need to kind of do these steps again with somebody else if you want to teach them something. So teaching somebody is about doing a lot of small steps and remembering which small steps you need to do. Because if you do only big leaps, they will just sit there and like, I don't understand you. Like, why are you saying this nonsense? This is obviously not true. Why are you saying that? So remember the small steps that you were required to take to learn something if you want to teach something to others. And this is like, as I said, in our society, so much is about learning, so much is about knowledge. So this will just become more and more important. So you need to respect the curse of knowledge. It's there. Try to work with it. You cannot avoid it in that sense. Like you cannot wish it away. It doesn't help. But you need to respect that other people don't see what you're seeing, and you need to remember your small steps. Otherwise, others will not be able to follow you. Okay, sixth rule, also a mindset rule, become nervous. A lot of people have already realized this, but it's still something which is important to focus on, I think. What's nervousness? Becoming nervous is a fright mechanism in our brain, which probably was super good for us when we lived on the coast of Africa and had a really soft life, except that there were some dangerous animals every now and then. So becoming nervous and becoming afraid are very powerful mechanics in our brain, and they were super important for our survival. Otherwise, they would never have been there. And they're part of almost all animals. They're super important everywhere. Like becoming nervous and becoming afraid, which is a more advanced step of nervousness, is super important in a primitive life. It's super bad in a modern life. It's really bad in a modern life in a lot of different ways. But we cannot help it. It's still there. It's still, nervousness is still a feeling. It's a very intense and real feeling which people experience. But I would say 90%, maybe even 99% of the cases when you feel nervous, you have nothing to be nervous about. Like it's a waste of energy to be nervous in almost all cases. Okay, so but what does that mean? Well, that means that you cannot choose not to be nervous. It's a feeling. So if you feel it, you feel it. However, what you can choose is how to react to the feeling. And what I'm always trying to do is, like, if I become nervous, I see that as a sign that, okay, now I'm going to learn something, or okay, now I'm going to be in a new situation which I'm not really confident about. That's why I'm nervous, but it will teach me something. It's a sign of me as a person growing. That's how I see nervousness. And I mean, there's a lot of talk about you should be outside your comfort zone, or like doing things outside of the box and stuff like that. And if you think about it, what does that mean? What does doing things outside your comfort zone mean? Well, it means to become nervous. That's what happens. That's how you actually know that you're outside your comfort zone. If you're doing something and you don't become nervous, then you're inside your comfort zone. Like then you're happy. You're like, wait, I have this under control. I've done this before. I haven't done it before, but I feel like I can handle it. Not outside your comfort zone. Outside your comfort zone, you're like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't do this. Might be a bad idea. That's outside your comfort zone. But because the nervousness is almost always misplaced, you should learn that it's there. You should learn that you can see it as a sign of that you're doing something, which will teach you something, which will make you grow as a person, or which will give you interesting experiences, and kind of embrace it in that sense. And nervousness is also good in a way that it's not an on-off. It's not that you become nervous or you're not nervous. It's actually more of a scale in that sense. It's like you're not nervous at all, normal case for most people, and most of the things we do daily. You can become a little nervous. You can become quite nervous. You can become very nervous, or you can shit your pants nervous. And so this scale also is a good thing, because what happens if you embrace nervousness and you say, like, okay, I should do more things which make me nervous, or I should welcome things which make me nervous, then it's usually on the first, like, it's in the beginning of that scale where you actually do it. If you come in a situation where this nervousness more or less becomes afraid, you usually don't do it anyway, because it's too strong feeling. You're driving away from it. So try to push yourself in that sense. Like, push yourself. Like, if you experience something which makes you nervous, push yourself to do it. And I mean, if you look back at your own life, I would assume that you've done things which made you nervous, and then once you did it, you kind of like, why was I nervous about this? Why was I afraid about this? And I have another mental milestone thing in my head, which is like, if I'm doing something which makes me nervous, I often become very, very conscious about it. And then I try to be conscious about when it no longer makes me nervous. So, for example, talking in front of people. Like, in the beginning, I was nervous, and now I'm no longer nervous. And for me, that's kind of a sign that, okay, now I've learned this. That's kind of my metrics for, have I learned this skill or doing this thing or not? If I'm no longer become nervous of something I became nervous about before, that's my metric for now I've learned it. So that's also like a mental tool to use in that sense. But yeah, become nervous as much as possible. The more nervous you become, I would say, the more situations you are in that make you nervous, the better for you. The more you will actually experience in life, and the more you will grow. And I will say that, of course, it might sometimes be dangerous, but there's, like, if you think about it, there's almost never any real danger. Especially if you look into it from hindsight. Like, what was actually dangerous about this? Very little, if in general. Okay, and the seventh and the last rule for living a unexpected, awesome, good, fun life is also a mental rule, but it's super important, and that is forgive. And forgive is something we actually are bad at in our society. We are in a society which is focused on thinking in the future. We are focused on doing things. But if you look, for example, at a lot of religions, you will see that religions are very focused on forgiving. Like if you look at Christianity, it's about forgiving. And why that? Why is this something which is important in religions? Why? Like I usually have this mindset, like if something is important in multiple places, and especially in older traditional places, then there's often a reason for it. It's not just that somebody felt like, ooh, forgiveness, that could be a fun thing to teach people. There's something meaningful in it, often something very philosophical or psychological in it. And forgiveness is one of those. We live in a society where we kind of assume that things should be equal. But as I already told you a little bit, equality is actually not that good from a personal. Equality is good on a structural level. Equality isn't good on a personal level, because it's really hard to be equal. We cannot be equal. And forgiving is super important. Forgiving is about you need to forgive other people. Other people will do you harm. Consciously, unconsciously, other people will hurt you. Other people will do stupid things. Other people will put you in circumstances you don't want to be. And you need to move on from that. And moving on is about forgiving. And forgiving is not about equality. It's not about now that other person is free. Forgiving is about you yourself becoming free. That's forgiving. Forgiving is to be able to move on yourself. You don't need to forgive somebody. You don't need to tell somebody that you have forgiven them. But you need to mentally let go of things. You cannot get stuck on things. And you cannot get stuck on that life is not fair, or that life is supposed to be fair, because it is not fair. Life is not fair. We cannot have we can't build a society where life is equally fair for everybody. It will be unfair. Especially it will be unfair because your experience of life is subjective. You will experience life different as somebody who's next to you and experience more or less a very similar life. It will still be different. So you need to forgive, because forgiveness is the only way to actually move forward. And it's super hard. It's super hard to forgive because it is unfair to forgive. In that sense. There is no justice in forgiving in that sense. But if you don't forgive, you will get stuck and you will become a prisoner in your own mind. As long as you are not letting things go, the other people which have done bad things to you or hurt you or said evil or things to you are actually still in your head. You're actually a prisoner of them indirectly if you don't get out of that. And forgiveness is the tool to get out of that. Is to accept this is how it has been. There were reasons for it. I don't agree with those reasons, but I can forgive that this has happened. So forgiving people, super important. Don't hold grudges. And of course, in some circumstances, it's small things, and I know in some circumstances it's super heavy things. But it's still something you need to work with. You need to still forgive people. So try to do that as much as possible. The more serious it is, the longer it takes. And I totally understand that. And it might be that there are certain things which you maybe never can forgive. But I think we can actually all forgive everything, even if it seems really weird or really strange. But you need to do yourself a favor and become free. And becoming free is about letting the past be what it was. We cannot change the past. We need to accept it. So that's important. So yeah, those are my 7 rules for life. Different dynamics, different ups and downs. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it taught you something. Thanks for being part of this event.